This is a demonstration of how we do Oryoki in the Brightway Zen lineage. I will start with the meal chant and I will pause to explain things as I go through the motions of Oryoki. I just clacked 2 wooden clappers together to begin the meal verse. If you don't have clappers and you want to do this on your own, you might improvise some other kind of instrument, something like that. But if we have clappers, we use them. Buddha was born in Kapilavastu, enlightened in Magadha, taught in Varanasi, entered Nirvana in Kushinagara. Now we set up Buddha's bowls. May we with all beings realize the emptiness of the 3 wheels, giver, receiver, and gift. At this point, we make a little bow at our seat. We'll lift up our Oryoki, a gesture of respect. And then we open our Oryoki sets. Open the right side first, then the left. You have a packet of things on the top of your Oryoki set. The first is a drying cloth, then there's a utensil holder. You pick those up together and you place them on your lap or right in front of you if you are seated on the floor. The next object is your lap cloth. Ideally, there will be 2 corners that you can grab of the lap cloth. You grab one corner with each finger and just open it up. And then you can lay this directly on your lap. The next thing is to open the top part of your cloth and the bottom. Now we are going to make essentially a little placemat for ourselves. And this can be a little bit tricky because we want to end up with a rather rectangular placemat, wide enough to contain our 3 bowls, but not too wide. So then we take up room if we're sitting at a table with others. So it's good to just trace a line that's kind of in front of your bowls out to the side, and then grab your Oryoki cloth there and create a fold where you're pulling up the cloth like that, and then you're tucking the corner side underneath. So it's like you left a little flower petal. Then you do the same thing on this inside piece, and ideally you're choosing a corner, choosing a point somewhat in line with the top. And you tuck that in as well. Then you do the left side and the right side. And you end up more or less with a rectangular placemat for your bowls. Then lift up your bowls and move them to the left. Then ideally you can put your fingers inside your bowls, and just the warmth of your fingers, the moisture of your fingers will let you lift your smallest bowl all the way over to the right. If your bowls don't work that way, you just lift them out as quietly as you can. And then you lift that second bowl out as well. Now you have your 3 Oryoki bowls lined up. The next thing you do is you take that utensil holder that's been sitting in your lap or on the floor in front of you, and you brace the bottom of this utensil holder against you. You press it against your chest. I can't show that on the camera right now, but if you press it against your chest and just kind of pull back, then you have your chopsticks and your spoon sticking out like this, and the Oryoki holder's kind of balled up like this. This lets you grab all of it without shaking it out of the sack. You can even kind of fold that under then. Now you have your utensils. The first utensil you take out is your spatula or setsu for washing your bowls. And you slide that in between the second and third bowl with the tip sticking out over the placemat a little bit. Then you take out your chopsticks and you put them in front of your bowls with the tips facing to the right and fairly close. The left edge is close to the end of the placemat. And then you do your same with your spoon. So they are laid out in front of the bowls like that. Then you can take this utensil holder and put it back in your lap or on the floor in front of you. And now your bowls are ready. And when everyone at the table has their bowls out, more or less like this, then we will continue with the chant. We will, the chant leader will say a short verse, then we will say after chanting 2 of the names of Buddha, we'll start serving. So I will begin the chant and then I'll pause and tell you what the serving is like. In the midst of the 3 treasures which verify our understanding, entrusting ourselves to the Sangha, we invoke Vairocana Buddha, pure Dharma Kaya, Lochana Buddha, complete Sambhoga Kaya. So then you would continue with the chant, and I will finish up with that chant in a moment. But at that point, after 2 names, everybody bows, and we start sending the food down the table. Or if you were in a zendo and people were walking, servers were walking by, they would start serving at that point. So we're going to start passing the bowls down the table. Once some food approaches you, so say it's coming from this direction and you're seated across from another person, and so the 2 of you, the person across from you and you, reach for the bowl and kind of move it between you. And then there should be 2 serving utensils in each bowl or pot, and then you can each serve yourselves at the same time. And you can lift up your bowls and move them over close to the serving pot if that works best. And you really want to be careful at all times that you do not touch the serving utensil to your personal bowl. After a while, you will have eaten out of these bowls and washed them with water, but they're still not sanitized. So you don't want the serving utensils to touch your bowls, because then they're going to go down the table and they're going to touch other people's food and germs will be passed. So you try to very carefully, spoon things into your bowl or use tongs and put things into your bowl without touching your bowl. So you serve yourself. Well, the first thing that comes down goes in your first bowl. The second thing that comes down generally goes in your second bowl. Sometimes the first bowl is rice, second bowl is stir fry, and it's acceptable to put the stir fry on top of your rice right away if you want. But typically the second thing that comes down the table goes in your second bowl. The third thing that goes down to the table goes into the third bowl. And then there may be some condiments and what have you as they get passed. So you try to do that fairly quickly and pass it on to the people next to you. Once everyone is done serving themselves, the chant continues. So while we're chanting, while that serving is happening, we continue with Shakyamuni Buddha, myriad Nirmana Kaya, Maitreya Buddha of future birth, all Buddhas throughout space and time, lotus of the wondrous Dharma Mahayana Sutra, Manjushri Bodhisattva, great wisdom, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, great activity, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, great compassion, Kashita Garbha Bodhisattva, great vow, all honored ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, Mahaprajna Paramita. And the chant leader will say a verse, a different one at breakfast and lunch. So if this was breakfast, right after Mahaprajna Paramita, this morning meal of 10 benefits nourishes us in our practice. Its rewards are boundless, filling us with ease and joy. Then there's a pause as everybody serves themselves food. So once everyone has served themselves food, then we begin with the rest of the verses. And there are some movements that we do during that part of the chant too. So I will talk about them as we do them. So we reflect on the effort that brought us this food and consider how it comes to us. We reflect on our virtue and practice and whether we are worthy of this offering. We regard it as essential to keep the mind free from excesses such as greed. We regard this food as good medicine to sustain our lives. For the sake of enlightenment, we now receive this food. Now there's a verse in the meal chant which we only do at lunch, which is about doing a food offering. We say, "Oh, spirits, we now make this offering. This food is for all of you in the 10 directions." As we do that verse, everyone is taking a little bit of their food and placing it on the tip of their spatula or setsu. So typically, if you had rice in this bowl, it would be about 9 grains of rice worth. So it's not a lot of food, just a little bit. You can take it from whichever bowl is most convenient. And then it can be a little tricky balancing it on the end of your spatula if it's tiny, like mine. But you put it there. And that will be collected later, as I will explain. Then we continue, or at breakfast, we don't do that verse. We would just continue with, "First, this is for the 3 treasures." And as we're doing that, we're placing the utensils in the bowls. So we would say, "First, this is for the 3 treasures. Next, for the 4 benefactors. Finally, for the beings in the 6 realms. May all be equally nourished." And we have placed the spoon straight in our bowl with the business end pointing straight away. And the the chopsticks are put crossways across your bowl with the tips pointing toward you. Then in the last verse, "The first bite is to end all evil." You take your bowl and you raise it up to eye level. The second is to cultivate all good. The third is to free all beings. May we all realize the Buddha way. We make a little bow and then we begin to eat. And just so you can see, this is the way that you hold your bowl up is a classic way to do it. You use your 3 fingers of each hand and you kind of make a little lotus blossom to hold your bowl. And all of these forms, there's many subtleties to them. The most important thing is just that you manage to get food into your bowls and into your body, so you don't have to worry too much about the forms, but I'm demonstrating them here just so that you have something to move toward. So then we are eating, and You know, it's pretty, we just do this in silence. You're eating from your bowl. A nice form, which is not a big deal, but is to put your utensil back into your bowl and then set it down. If you're not going to use your chopsticks, for instance, you can set them down with the tips pointing to the left. You can move your spoon into your other bowl if you prefer to use that. So when you are done eating, then you place your utensils back in your bowls like this. So we do serve seconds. There will be a clap at some point for seconds, and they will be passed back down. So keep that in mind. But you also have to remember that you do need to eat every last thing that you take. Because of the nature of Oryokis, we're going to clean our bowls and wrap them back up at the end. So it's about that, as well as not wasting any food. So you might want to go take a little bit less than you expect. You might you can always take something on seconds. But Oryoki does tend to go fairly fast compared to how quickly most people usually eat. We try not to rush too much, but just be aware of that. Then if you want seconds when they are passed, you remove the utensil from the bowl that will receive the food. And you can put that down on your little placemat with the business end facing to the left. And then when the food comes down, it's going to be come back and be placed in front of you and the person across from you. If you want food, then place your hands clearly in gasho as the food approaches and as it's set down in front of you. And then the person across from you will pause while you serve yourself some more food. Now, there's a temptation to just want to do a lot of bowing as the food comes by, but then that makes it confusing. So just make gasho if you want food. If you don't want food, then you help pass it, but then you put your hands in your lap where they can't be seen. I'm just holding them out so you can see them. Just hold them together in your lap, very still, and then make a little bow to indicate you don't want any of the food. And then you and the person across from you can pass it further down the table. When you are completely done eating, that you have your utensils back like that. At some point, the teacher will indicate that everybody is done and it's time to start cleaning our bowls. So they will take their setsu and put it into the first bowl, and then take their spoon and clean it off in their mouth. So I can't demonstrate that, but you're putting it in your mouth, you're licking it off, you're scraping off any extra food, but in the meantime, you're covering your mouth and the spoon with that, so people don't have to watch you do that. Then you set it down in front of your bowls. Chopsticks, you do the same thing. You clean them off if you have used them. And now you clean your bowl. And you scrape out with this spatula any extra food that is in there, and then you eat it. So you put this in your mouth and you eat every last little bit of food. And then when you've cleaned that bowl, you do the same thing with the second bowl. You clean that bowl, you do it with the third, and then put the spatula back into the first bowl. And that is facing straight out. The camera angle isn't showing that so much, but then you wait, and when everybody is ready, then some water will be passed in kettles. And that is wash water for your Oryoki bowl. And when the kettle is coming down the table, you make gasho. When the person before you is receiving the water. So you're paying attention to what's happening in the rest of the meal. So you make gasho, and so you're noticing that this water is coming. Then when your neighbor has received water, they will take the tea kettle themselves and they will pour water for you. And so you hold your bowl over conveniently for your neighbor, and they will start pouring a little bit of hot water in your bowl. And when you have enough hot water, you don't need all that much for washing your bowls, you lift your spatula, your setsu here, you're holding it like that. You lift it up to indicate that's enough, and they will stop pouring. Then set your bowl back down, and then you take the kettle and pour for the next person. And then they will take the kettle. Then everybody is waiting for all of that to be done, and the teacher will indicate when it is time to start cleaning out your bowl. So then you use this spatula with the water to clean out your bowl. Then you take that water and you pour it into the second bowl. Now you have a clean but wet bowl in your hand. So now you reach into your lap and you get that drying cloth that was part of your Oryoki setup. And you take that cloth and just put it over the bowl. And you take your thumbs and through at least 3 motions, you clean your bowl, dry it like that. Then you can just kind of ball it up and dry your bowl like that. You can dry it however it needs to be. And then you just leave that drying cloth right in the bowl. Then you take your spoon and you're going to wash your utensils in your second bowl. So you wash them off. Then you take this and dry it on the corner of the Oryoki cloth. Now you're going to put that back into your utensil holder. So it's convenient if you have already folded up your utensil holder as you would taking things out. And then you slip it in, but not all the way. That just waits for a little bit. And you clean your chopsticks. And a nice thing to do is to dry off that end, but then also turn them around and kind of wipe off the handles. Now you've slipped your utensils in here, and now you can very, very gently and hopefully somewhat quietly slide them down into your utensil holder. And then fold that over, because the spatula is not going to go all the way inside. Then you clean your second bowl, pour the water into the third bowl. Now you dry your second bowl. Take that drying cloth, put it over. Try to put your bowl in as quietly as you can. And move this bowl to the center. Wash that. If you've made the lunch offering, there might be a little bit of food there, and you can stick the end of your spatula in the water as well. Then you dry off your spatula. And you put this in your utensil holder like that, sticking the handle inside, but leaving the spatula to dry off. So now you have a little bit of water in your bowl, and it is traditional to drink a little bit of it and leave a little bit of it. There's going to be a container passed down that you pour that water into. So let's pretend I'm going to take a little drink of it, and then I just wait. Now there's going to be it's a bamboo tube in our case. There'll be a container passed along the table and a verse recited when that begins. The water with which we wash our bowls tastes like heavenly nectar. We offer it to the many spirits to satisfy them. Om Maha Kushalaya Svaha. When that container gets to you, you pour the remaining of water into it, and you pour toward you so that you don't accidentally, spill on someone else. And the full traditional way to do this is to hold the bowl like this and then turn it toward you. So if this is the container, you'd be pouring it in like that. So somebody's going to hand you this container, you put it in front of your Oryoki set, and then you pour your wastewater into it. And then you pass that along to the next person. And it's best to put the container on the table or on the floor, not hold it for the other person, which actually makes the whole process a little more insecure. Now, as soon as you have emptied your water, you can dry your bowl. So in this case, we're not waiting for everybody to be done. And again, if you can use your thumbs to do this, that's great. Otherwise, just try to put your bowls in there as quietly as possible. Then you move everything to the center. You pull out the sides of your placemat, wrapping cloth. You pull out the top and bottom. And the first fold that you make is the part that's closest to you. And then you fold the front part over. Now you're going to pile up your implements. So you're going to take your drying cloth, and if it's possible that if you've unfolded it in a way that the fold forms something of a V, you can actually just put one finger here, one finger here, and then fold it up. And hopefully there will be creases for you to follow to neatly fold the lap cloth. And you put that on the bowl. Then you put your utensil holder. And then you kind of stretch out your drying cloth, ironing it by hand. And you put that on the top because then it can dry out a little bit between meals. And you want it stretched out a little bit, as opposed to balled up right here where it's going to get covered by the wrapping cloth. So stretched out a little bit. Then you take the left flap of your Oryoki, and I'm not going to demonstrate the knot. Probably has to be taught in person. And then the right part goes over. And now your whole eating set is done. And there's one closing verse, which just the chant leader leads. Abiding in this ephemeral world like a lotus in muddy water, the mind is pure and goes beyond. Thus we bow to Buddha. And that's it.